Hi, welcome to episode 517 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Blue Sky. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be, and I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarn and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? I hope that you are doing well. It is Monday, April 14th, and it is a somewhat cloudy, but not too chilly day outside. It is in the 60s here. We are going back and forth between 80s and 60s and 40s, and that feels very, very Midwestern. So I hope that you are doing well. I am having a bit of an inspirational, creative, want to do all the things jag right now, and I am going to ride it as long as I can. So I hope that things are creative in your neck of the woods. I have lots to talk to you about today. I have a couple knitting projects, I have a couple spinning projects, and then I have a couple quilting projects to talk about. So, buckle up. It's going to be a little bit of a ride today, and we'll get through everything. So, on my list right now, and possibly coming to an end, are the charity hats that I have been knitting. I don't mean an end permanently, I mean like a current pause. So I have been working on a bunch of hats for charity using leftover balls, partial balls of yarn that I have left over from other projects. They're all kind of DK weight and worsted weight. And oh, I completely forgot about the tea and all the other things. Wow, I'm just... Okay, so let's talk about the tea first and then I'll go back. So the tea that I'm drinking today is Mystic Mint. It is from Tea Runners, and it is organic peppermint, organic cardamom, organic licorice root, essential basil, and clover leaf oils. So it's mint with a little bit of spice. I suspect because it has licorice in it, it would also be good for a sore throat. I'm drinking it in my Carl Mountford Skills mug, which is Batman knitting, which I absolutely love. There was also a Superman one and I think a Wonder Woman one. Back in the day, I bought this through Society 6. It doesn't appear that any of Carl Mountford's illustrations are on Society 6 anymore. It has been quite a few years, but I actually got a new phone this week, and interestingly enough, as I'm looking at it as I'm recording, I think I look much clearer and the lighting is much better. So I don't even want to admit I was on an iPhone 8. And I was talking to a friend about the fact that my iPhone 8, the battery was no longer holding a charge, and I was thinking about paying to get the battery replaced, and she was like, do you know how many editions you're behind? I guess we're on the iPhone 16 right now. So I got an iPhone 15, which was a little bit less expensive, and so I have upgraded, and I hope that I do not need another phone for 7 years, which is how long I had my last phone. But it is a big improvement and quite different. I've been having to Google how to do things on the phone because, for instance, there's no home button anymore. You have to just swipe things. Anyway. So I went looking because I actually wanted to get a Carl Mountford case for my new phone, and the artwork was no longer there, which made me very sad. And I checked, and it wasn't just that they didn't have phone cases. It just isn't there anymore, which doesn't surprise me. He's a pretty amazing artist, and I don't know... in the early days, I know Society 6 was really, really great about intellectual property laws, and I don't know anymore. I saw, when I went looking for phone cases that represented knitting, I also found a lot less to choose from, so I'm not sure where that's at. Anyway, so I'm drinking my tea in my Carl Mountford mug. It is lovely. And I have a new phone, so hopefully this will be even clearer, vocally speaking, and also visually speaking. So let's go back. I have been knitting charity hats out of leftover partial balls that I have from other projects, DK and worsted weight. And the first pattern that I did was a pattern by Sarah Shira of Imagine Landscapes, and then I have really sort of glommed onto one pattern and I'm knitting it over and over and over, which is great because I don't even need the pattern anymore. I just cast on and go. And that is the June hat, which is by Kelburn Woolens. It was made when they launched their Germantown line, which is a worsted weight line. So you've heard me talk about the details. There are links in the show notes. I believe you can get the patterns on their website. I have a link to their website, and the patterns are also available for free on Ravelry. I finished the hat that I showed you last week, which is, this is a simple, it's a striped hat, and I used the pink is Malabrigo Rios in the colorway Rosy? Posy? Either Rosy or Posy. And the variegated was a gray, pink, yellow, and white that was left over from Zen Yarn Garden. It was a baby surprise jacket that I knit out of it, which was a sample for them. And I had 2 little balls left over, and I finished one up in this hat, and I still have one left. Unfortunately, they are no longer dyeing, so if you want some of their yarn, you'll have to get it on D-Stash, but that was a DK weight skein, and then Rios is technically considered worsted, and I knit these on 6s and 8s, and the pattern is real simple. Like I said, you've seen this before, and so I finished this one, and then I cast on another one. And I have just been working on this pattern on bits and bobs of leftovers, and this might be the last one for a while because I'm actually going to turn my attention to a few other things, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I started it. It, again, is the same pattern, exactly the same pattern. This time I'm using my variegated as my main color, and I'm still using that. I just have a little bit left of that rosy. So this is the leftovers that I have of it. I knit Roxy a sweater in it, and so I had a number of leftover balls of this, and it's just kind of a pinky peachy coral. And then I am using leftovers from another yarn company that is no longer in business. It was, I know the owner's name. I know the owner bought out Lorna's Laces, and then Lorna's Laces shut down, and then she started her own dye house, and I worked for her. I promoted her company, which is why it's really bad that I can't remember. And she closed down after about a year, and this was a skein that had something about mermaid in it. I don't know whether it was Mermaid's Tail, Mermaid's Curse, and I knit a hat for myself, and so it is variegated. It's got the teal and the pink, and then a few pops of kind of an orangey red and white, and so I am using that as the main color with the pink as the contrast, and this is what I am ending up with. I am not very far into this. I started this at Quilting Guild the other night while I was sitting there and managed to get through the ribbing, and now I'm onto the body of the hat, and I have quite a few more inches to go. My hope is, I don't even know that I'll finish the pink, but my hope is that I will use up more of these, and I do hope to finish this week. I just don't know if I'll cast on more after this. I still have bags and bags and bags of leftover bits and bobs, so I have plenty that I can still do, and I may pick this hat up again on and off throughout the year. My goal was to kind of spend March and April knitting for charity, and I did do it all of March, and this is the current hat that I'm working on is the 7th hat. I was hoping to maybe get to 8, but I am shifting my attention slightly because I picked up an older project, and it was on one of the UFO lists that I was hoping to finish this year, and since I'm into it, and I don't want to put it back aside, I'm kind of thinking I might devote some time to that instead. So yeah, so let me get right to that. That is my chicken for the City Girl Farm. I work as a contract chicken feather knitter for City Girl Farm, and often I work on, hang on 2 seconds, projects for them. We create, they are the home of the original chicken footstool, which are these really cool sculptural pieces that are covered in knitting or felting. And I work on the knitting crew. Occasionally I spin, but mostly I just knit. And so we get to create all kinds of fun chicken feathers. And I do this kind of as piecework. I go up to the art studio, I pick up stuff, I drop off stuff, I pick up stuff, I bring it home, I work on it for a week or two, and then I go back and do the same thing. So currently I have 2 chickens in progress. These are for the studio. So these are for chicken footstools to sell, and that's at thecitygirlfarm.com. And I'm currently doing a one in honey and white. So I'm just making various sized and shaped pieces in kind of a 1x1, and then it's just sort of a broken, it's stockinette broken every so often by garter bumps or purl stitches. And then the other one that I'm doing is making use of the loop stitch, and this one is a gray, and so it's kind of a gray loopy body that looks a little bit like feathers. So I'm working on both of these. Hopefully these will, this one has a lot of fuzz in it. It's a bat, and it's quite fuzzy and lots of Anyway, one of the things that is a perk of working for the City Girl Farm is that if you work for them often enough and reliably enough, you can earn your own chicken. And so I have been working on my own chicken probably for over 2 years now. And I got the idea. One of the chickens that I knit for them is incredibly time consuming and is knit in all these little pieces. And I started thinking that that was the one that I wanted to make, because that's kind of, I am one of a variety of knitters, but that particular type of chicken is one that only I really knit, because it's kind of complicated and involved, and a lot of the women prefer slightly less complicated pieces. And so I decided that I wanted to make my chicken one of those, because it was like kind of the show-stopping thing that I did. And then I got into it and realized that they're really kind of a pain in the butt. And I really, I worked on it for a while, and then I stopped when I hurt my wrist, and then I was really having a hard time getting back into it. And I had knit probably half or so of the feather pieces that I needed for my chicken. And then I went in to the studio a few weeks ago to drop something off, and I saw a chicken. So I guess I should explain. The chicken footstools they're made of wood and brass, and then they are covered and kind of upholstered in the woolen creations that we make, which is somebody spins and then somebody knits or somebody felts. And so I saw one a few weeks ago, and I really liked it, and I knew how it was done because actually I had been the one to knit the pieces for it. And so I decided that I was going to try knitting some different pieces for mine that might be a little bit less effort on my end, but would still give great effect. And last week I showed you 2 stockinette pieces, and then I said that I really wanted to try the garter pieces, and so I did that this week. So I knit 2 garter pieces, and this is the first one. And so this is what it looks like from the quote right side, and then this is what it looks like from the wrong side. And I can't decide which one I like. I mean, on one hand, I do like the pinstripes, and it kind of fits with the other pieces that I've knit. But on the other hand, I love how garter stitch, the interplay of it, kind of just makes it really cool looking, and it still looks subtly stripy. Anyway, so I knit 2 of these this week. Very excited about that, and really want to work on knitting more of these. And I have plenty of the hand spun is mine. It is called Enchilada Night, and it is on Corriedale, and it was dyed by Hello Yarn. And so it is lots of greens, and then there's some burgundies and rusts and blues, and it's just it's kind of a muted color scheme. And then I am knitting it with some yarn that I purchased at a Ply-Away a long time ago from Ross Family Farm, which is a heritage breed farm, although this is, I guess Shetland kind of is a heritage breed, but not really. This is Shetland from their flock, and I bought a sweater quantity of it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it had a lot of veg matter in it, and as I was starting to knit something from it, it was annoying me a little bit. They try to minimally process their yarns, so it was disclosed to me, but it wasn't my favorite. And so then I decided that I would turn this into my chicken sculpture. So that is what I have going on here. I only have this much left that I have spun of my hand spun, so I probably have 1 to 2 more pieces, and then I'm going to be out. But what I do have, and this kind of fast forwards to the spinning section, is I do have a whole bag, probably at least 8 ounces more of fiber to be spun. And so I really, really want to get this on the wheel so that I can keep knitting and not lose momentum now that I have my momentum back. So that is kind of figuring into my plans over the next few weeks, that I would really like to spin, and then I would like to knit more of these and get everything done so that I can take it in and we can begin putting my chicken together. That involves laying it out, pinning it, and then sewing it. And I actually will not be doing the sewing. That is somebody else's job. They sort of do it like upholstered details. So that is a project that I really want to dig into over the next few weeks. And as I said, it was on my UFO list. So it was like on my mind in January and February this year while I was working on UFOs, but I just kind of didn't make it because I was still kind of stuck on it, creatively speaking. But now that I feel like I'm unstuck, I really want to get through it and get it done and get it off my plate and have my beautiful chicken in hand. So that is something you will be seeing more of in the next couple weeks. And I definitely wanted to bring that up. So those are the things that I worked on knitting this week. You'll see why I didn't have a ton of time for knitting. because I finished the hat. I started a second one. I worked on the chickens that I showed you actually for the chicken studio, and then I worked a little bit on my own, but I also worked on a lot of spinning and some quilting. So let's move on to the spinning side of things, and I'll talk about that. The other big thing that I would really like to do is I would really like to cast on Miles' sweater. All of the yarn came in for that, and I'm going to be making him a Minecraft sweater. It's a top-down colorwork yoke and then a pretty plain and simple body. So actually the fun part is kind of up at the beginning where I do the top-down and the yoke color work. And so I would like to dig into that and get that done in the next couple weeks so that then I can just work on the sleeves and the body as my kind of roundy plain knitting time in front of the television. So like I said, I think I'm probably going to try and wrap it up on the hats this week, and the next few weeks are going to be Miles' sweater and chicken knitting. So stay tuned for that. So to talk about spinning, I've actually had a pretty good week. It took me about a week and a half to finish spinning up the first braid of my 2-ply combo spin. The braid is Treasure Goddess Yarns, and it is her Tarhi in the colorway Landlubber, and it is this great kind of It looks kind of like a pea green overall, but it has a little bit of semi-solid variegation in it. It had some lighter parts, it had some foresty green parts, it had some kind of yellowy swampy green parts, and so it's kind of hard to see on the bobbin. You can see a little bit that it's got a little bit of variation in there. And so that was the first bobbin of my 2-bobbin combo spin. And the second bobbin is I am using Blackwater Treasures, and it is hand-dyed roving Tussa Silk 3 ounces in this bright green. And so I started spinning this last night and this morning, and I have 3 ounces of this, and my hope is that I can spin a bunch of this week. It is kind of almost acidic, but it's also got some darker green parts in it. It looks like she used a variety of green dyes. And so this is pure Tussa Silk, so this is going to be kind of a luxury combo spin. This is something that I bought when I went to the silk spinning retreat in February, and so I'm really enjoying trying to do the combo spin between it. I will say the Tarhi was really easy to spin. It drafted beautifully. I got through it in no time, and the silk is requiring a little bit more concentration, so it may take me a little bit longer to spin this. But then my plan is to have this is my 4-ounce bobbin of Tarhi, and then I'll have 3 ounces of the silk. And so my plan is to 2-ply for as much as I am able between the two, and that will be a skein probably 6 ounces or a little more. And that will be put up in my shop as kind of a luxury fun spin. And then I'll probably just 2-ply the remainder of the green, and I'll use it for something else. And that is fine. I knew that going in. I just wanted to see what it would be like to do. This should be kind of a 2-ply barber pole, and it will have slightly different colors to it, but it will kind of be all green, and so I'm hoping that will be really fun together. I saw some samples at the silk spinning retreat that Christine had done using like a regular Tarhi braid and some silk, and so I was really eager to try that. And the only thing that is bumming me out about this, and it's not really bumming me out about this, is that I really want to get that fiber for my chicken on the wheel, so I'm really pushing to try and get through this because I need the bobbins back if I want to get the rest on the wheel. So I am motivated to spin, I am motivated to knit, and my hope is that that will keep on going for the next several weeks so that I can get through what I would like to. So that is the spinning content portion. And now let's talk a little bit about quilting. I don't have too much to, well, okay, I do have things to share here. It's not big stuff. I have progress and something a little bit new to show you, but it's not staying. So, okay. So I had a Quilt Guild meeting this week, which was wonderful. I still find Quilt Guild really inspiring, and like it kickstarts me to come home and do something. And so this weekend I came home and wanted to work on my plan for my negative space quilt. I talked about that a few weeks ago, how we are being challenged to produce quilts that make use of negative space. And in art, that's a concept where you sort of have something of, you have something of prominence in the, for instance, it applies to photographs and art. And the picture that they showed us was of some boots on a brick, walkway, and the boots were kind of the central focal point of the assignment, but then the bricks were kind of like the background and kind of the negative space around it, and there was just some light outlining to sort of give you the idea that there was like that the shoes were on a brick surface, but it wasn't like completely filled in. So the idea of negative space is that you're emphasizing both what's there and what's not there, and you're creating some kind of form and texture in both of those spaces. And I had a couple of really good ideas, and I have to say that like I see things in my head and then I try and create them, try and sew them, and it doesn't work out as well, and so that was a bit of a challenge. The first concept that I wanted to do did not work at all, and I didn't even bring that to show you because it just did not work, and I am not above sharing my screw-ups with you, but I just decided that it needs more work, and maybe I will revisit it at a later date, and if I do, I will talk to you about my problems getting there and how I solved them, but for now, I just shoved that aside and thought, okay, let's move on to Plan B. And Plan B actually was kind of the first thing that I thought of when we got assigned to this project, and then I threw it over for something that I thought would be a little bit more interesting, but I decided to go back to it because one of the things about the Quilt Guild Challenge is they're challenging us to make these quilts, and then May's meeting is all about talking about what you did and how you made your quilt. So my first instinct was that stars are a really common block in quilting, like 8-pointed star blocks. And my idea was that in general, I mean, I've seen it done both ways, but in general, what I see is that the fabric that you want people to focus on is the star block, and then usually you have kind of a neutral background. Now, I have seen it done the other way around, but for the purposes of this, what I wanted to do was I wanted to take that bright print and put it on the outside, and then create kind of the hole in the middle with the neutral fabric. And I wanted that to serve as a surface for me to do some really cool quilting designs in there. So this weekend, kind of as yesterday, as kind of a second idea for a project, I took out a couple squares of fabric and I whipped up a star and I sewed it together wrong at first. So I had to take it apart and re-sew it together. So I felt kind of like a dummy, but I added the border strips today at lunch, and this is my quilt. Now, what I will say is that we were challenged to create a mini quilt. When they give us these challenges, they want us to make it small so that it's something that's achievable and easy enough to kind of put together for a meeting. And they don't want you to learn a technique for the first time on a huge quilt that might be very difficult to kind of finish. Also, if you find that it's a technique that you don't enjoy, then you just have a really small quilt to finish. And these are sort of practice pieces or lesson pieces. And I thought that was a really interesting concept because usually I just want to make it big enough for a wall or a lap quilt. But I am going with the flow. And so our maximum size on this was 24 by 24. And I thought at first that that's the size that I would do for the quilt. That was how I planned out my original one. But as it turns out this time, for ease of sizing and the fabric pieces that I had available, my finished block and thus my finished quilt will be roughly 18 by 18. But here is what I did. So this is my star block, and as I said, I wanted to emphasize the outer fabric and then leave kind of the blank space in the middle. And so this is the block that I have created. Basically, I had two layer cake squares. So it was two 10 by 10 squares of the white. And then I had a fat quarter, which is technically it's a quarter yard, but it's arranged a little bit differently. So a quarter yard of fabric typically is 9 inches by width of fabric, which is usually about 44 inches. And a fat quarter is half the width of the fabric, but twice the length of what you were gonna get. So a quarter yard is 9 by 44, and a fat quarter is 18 by 22. And so I took my 18 by 22 piece of fabric and I got all of the triangles and squares for the print, and then even had enough to do a 1-inch finished border around this. So this whole piece measures approximately 18 by 18. Now the interesting part comes in what I'm going to do in the negative space, which is the white star at the center. And I have a variety of ideas about how I want to quilt this. And there are a couple things I haven't decided. First of all, I haven't decided if I'm going to hand quilt it or machine quilt it. Difference being whether I hand sew with embroidery floss or whether I quilt it on my machine. Second of all, I haven't decided exactly whether I want to do, so the way you can use negative space in a couple ways. I could use the negative white in this space to kind of showcase, or I could use the white in the middle of this space to showcase some colors, and I could do some kind of colorful quilting designs that adds another element and texture to that. The other way that I could do it is I could do it in thread that matches, so the design would be super, super subtle, but you could see whatever patterns or motifs I decided to use for the center. So I haven't exactly decided what I'm going to do. Each day I look at it and I think a different thing. So that is kind of the next part of my process, is deciding how to quilt this. So it will be adding batting and backing, and then figuring out whether I'm going to quilt it on my machine or I'm going to quilt it by hand. So stay tuned. This will become more, but this is what I am doing so far for my negative space quilt. So the reason I was discussing hand quilting, which is actually not something that I've done before, or I should say not something that I've done before yesterday, is that I am learning to hand quilt. So hand quilting, which is sometimes, well, okay, back in the day, everything was hand quilted. Everything was hand sewn. Things were pieced and then they were quilted by hand with needle and thread. These days, there are sort of two camps of thought. One is that you can do hand quilting with needle and thread, or you can run it through the machine. Obviously, the machine is faster. It is not necessarily what everybody prefers. I know that there are plenty of people out there who prefer to hand quilt. Thus far, I have either sent my quilts to someone else to machine quilt them on a long arm, or I have quilted them myself on my domestic machine. But an opportunity came up for me to learn a little bit about big stitch quilting. And big stitch quilting is when you use a thicker thread to quilt your quilt, and oftentimes it becomes part of the element of design. So sometimes when you are quilting your quilt, you don't want motifs and patterns. Sometimes you just want straight lines, and or you want to echo where the points of the block are. And so you want your quilting to like basically blend in and not be a thing. In big stitch quilting, oftentimes you want it to be more of a thing, and you want it to look almost embroidered or hand sewn, and you use thicker thread to achieve that result. So as part of the Quilt Guild, we do a variety of community projects. Or I should say the Quilt Guild does a variety of community projects. Late last year, they got together to do a community quilt. And that was everybody met and sewed a portion of the quilt, and then it was all put together. And so we have a community quilt. And then they decided that what they wanted to do was they wanted to hand quilt it, and they were going to pass it around to guild members who would like to hand quilt it, so that it was going to be something that a lot of hands in our guild touched. And they would like to display it in June at one of the local regional quilt festivals. So I don't want to say the rush is on, because we still have 2 more months basically to finish it. Yeah, about almost two months from a couple days ago to finish it. But somebody brought it to the meeting this week and there were no takers, and I decided I can figure this out, and I can. I did have to buy some special thread for it, and I didn't actually bring that with me, but I had to buy some slightly thicker thread. I am using number 8 cotton floss. I'm using pearl cotton floss, but there are other makers. It's basically a thicker embroidery floss. So DMC, which is what a lot of people are familiar with, is an embroidery floss that has multiple strands, and you can work with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 strands. And so I would say that this floss is thicker than 1 strand, but thinner than 6 strands. It's probably between a 2 and a 3, but it's all 1 thread. So it's not multiple strands that I'm using. And it comes in a ton of different colors, and it's something that Missouri Star sells, and I work for Missouri Star, so I just placed an order and got several colors. And so I'm going to show you the quilt. The quilt pattern is called Berry Jam. It was designed by Tia Curtis, who actually is a member of the Quilt Guild, but the pattern is also available for purchase. It is a modern quilt based on strip piecing and borders. So let me show you part of this is a really big quilt, so I won't be able to show you all of it, but let me show you what part of the quilt looks like, and then I will show you the piece that I worked on. So, okay, so I'm going to stand back for a second so you can see a little bit more of this quilt. So this is the Berry Jam quilt, and like I said, it is striped piecing and then borders are added, and it is made, you can make it in a rectangle or a square, but ours is a square. And then it's also got, like, they had some extra strips, so they put them on the back, but otherwise the backing is just plain blue. Now what we are doing is we are hand quilting the quilt in a variety. You can do whatever pattern you want. I've just been doing some straight line, but we are doing big stitching. And this is what the big stitching looks like. If you can see all those stitches there. You can see it's in a variety of colors and threads. You might be able to see it. Yeah, you can see it up here better. So, but what I will say, and so the whole quilt is basted together, it's safety pinned together, and then you sew through, and it creates the pattern on the back as well. So you can see like the little stitches on the back as well. And so ideally you'd like them to be, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. Some people are very, very consistent in the length of their stitches. I am not. This was my first time doing this. So on Sunday, I did the part that starts over here with the mint green. So not the orange, but the part that starts over here with the mint green. And then I also did the purple section through here. So my plan is to do a couple more afternoon, evening sessions and get a little bit more of this quilted, and then get on Facebook and announce in the guild group that the quilt is ready to move on to someone else. But basically I had to learn how to do that. It's pretty easy to do. You need an embroidery needle that has a pretty wide eye so that you can get the thread through, and then you just kind of make your patterns, and you can thread the needle through a couple bits of the quilt at once, so you don't have to make every stitch individually. You can do like 2 or 3 at a time, and then you just keep going, and you can do it kind of in any pattern you want. There is a section of the quilt where somebody did constellations. I don't know if you can see those, but they did like a bunch of constellations and chevrons. And then the section of the quilt that I like the best, and I do not have the talent to do this because wow, this is pretty, is somebody did the meandering stitch pattern. You can see I have done this on my machine, but you can see they just did all kinds of curves and meandered in and out and around. And I was not up for that for my first time, but yeah. So my plan is to work through, I would really, really like to, if I had my druthers, there are these 2 sections. I'm almost done with this section here, and I would like to do this top section. And if I can, I would like to get started just a little bit on this one here. This hasn't been started yet at all. So I would like to do maybe a part of that, and then I will, and this is our logo. It says KCMQG for Kansas City Modern Quilt Guild, and those were pieced together. But my plan is to try and get partway through here and then give it over to someone else. And we have about 6 weeks left, so that should be a couple more people who can get through and finish this, and maybe somebody can finish up the binding afterwards. So that is what I'm working on. As I said, it's not a quilt you'll see again, because my plan is to work on it through this week and maybe through this weekend. Although I might actually just, oh look, I caught some of my fiber. That was fun. Oops. Now it's got silk on it. Haha. So my plan is to work on this just a little bit and get through a little bit more of it, and then try and pass it off to someone else so they can work on it. So that is what I am working on here, and I thought that was kind of interesting and just wanted to share that. It's made me think about whether I want to do a quilt in the future with big stitching. It looks really kind of rustic and fun, and I would love to be able to do it and be better at it, have more consistency in my stitches, and maybe do some fun patterns. So that is that quilt. So I think that is all I have to share with you today. I feel like that's probably enough. That's probably enough because that gets at what I've been doing for the last few weeks. But I have just been really motivated and inspired to continue working on things and expand my skills and try a little bit of everything. And I really need to settle down and finish a few things. That would be good too. Okay. I hope that you have a wonderful week ahead, that you are finding some fun things to do in your life. I appear to be having fun in mine. So, while things aren't perfect in the outside world, inside my house, they're nice and cozy. And I am doing lots and lots of crafting, and it's keeping my mind off of other things. So I hope that you have a wonderful week ahead, and I will talk to you next week. And until then, I will say happy spinning, happy knitting, happy quilting, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.